What's going on, guys? Welcome back, Leo Patso Productions. Thank you very much for tuning in. In today's video, we're gonna be having a closer look at this PTZ camera. This is made by Tenveo. This PTZ camera has a bunch of features. I'm gonna be sharing with you guys today in this video, everything you need to know about this camera. So stick with me. I'm gonna take you guys along the way. Alright guys, let's go ahead and quickly have a closer look at everything that comes included with the kit. So starting off over here into the middle with the actual PTZ camera itself, we do have this little lens cap that's going to allow us to protect the lens when we are not using it. Over here we do have the AC/DC power adapter that's going to allow us to power the camera by plugging it into the wall. Over here we do have a USB 3.0 cable, which is actually pretty long, and it's going to allow us to connect the camera to our PC. Over here, we do have the wireless remote controller to control this PTZ camera as well. Onto the right-hand side, we do have a detailed user manual, and along with the new tech tools guide to take advantage of that NDI feature. Over here, we do have the metal mount for the camera to mount it onto the wall, and along with some screws and some anchors. So that is everything that we have included with the kit. Let's go ahead and get a little bit more familiar with the actual camera itself and all the connections that we have here at the back. So having a closer look at the connections at the back of the camera, starting off over here onto the left-hand side, we do have the DC 12-volt input to power the camera. Next to that, we have the RS485 connection, and along with the RS232 input and RS232 output. Just next to that, we have the USB connection, along with the HDMI out and the SDI out. And onto the right-hand side here, we have the audio line input. Next to that, we have the audio line output, and finally the RJ45 network Ethernet connection. So let's go ahead and get a little bit more familiar with this PTZ camera, because this camera would be a perfect choice for capturing and streaming church services, worship events, government activities, meetings, live concerts, product launches, studio streaming, live broadcast, and more. This PTZ camera is equipped with a 20 times optical zoom and an 8 times digital zoom, which can support up to 1080p 60 frames per second video output. The camera is also equipped with a 1/2.8 inch Sony CMOS sensor combined with a 2D and 3D digital noise reduction technology and algorithm. With an included NDI license by NewTek, you can access ultra low latency, high quality, frame accurate video streaming and PTZ control over NDI protocol. The camera also supports AI auto tracking, which is going to support human shape tracking based on advanced AI algorithm through face recognition. It can accurately determine the location of people, realize automatic tracking and automatic frame selection. This makes it ideal for capturing live events such as church services, worship events, sporting events, live concert, video production, or large conferences. This PTZ camera can be controlled remotely and can rotate up to 350 degrees horizontally and 90 degrees plus or minus vertically in an accurate, smooth, and silent way. It also supports up to 10 different presets through the IR remote control and is available to set up 255 presets via the RS232 and the RS485 interfaces for professional control. The camera is also equipped with 3G SDI,
HDMI, and USB 3.0, along with the RJ45 interfaces. It also supports PoE, power over Ethernet, and meanwhile the line in and the line out as far as the audio interfaces can be connected to audio devices, supporting simultaneous audio and video streaming. This IP live streaming camera is compatible with the current popular video streaming softwares, for an example, Zoom, Skype, YouTube, WebEx, Facebook, Teams, FaceTime, Google Hangouts, OBS, Google Meet, and video production softwares which support NDI HX. This PTZ camera can just simply be rested onto a desk or table, or can easily be mounted to a tripod via the 1/4-20 threads at the bottom of the PTZ camera. Okay guys, just quickly I wanted to go ahead and give you guys an example of the 20x zoom. So currently right now the camera is zoomed out all the way. I'm just going to use this wireless remote control over here and zoom in. So there is my PC screen over there. This is zoomed in all the way right over there, and the autofocus, you can see the quality of the image just looks fantastic, and the autofocus is doing a great job. All right guys, so here's another little test example of the autofocus on how well it works, and along with the zoom feature up to 20x zoom. So I'm just going to use the remote control. Currently right now the camera is about maybe 3-4 feet away from me. It is zoomed all the way out. Let's go ahead and zoom in all the way, and you guys can see how the image quality is looking like, and along with the autofocus. This is zoomed in all the way, optical zoom 20 times right into my eye over here, and it is doing a fantastic job. Very impressed with that. As you guys can see guys, the autofocus is doing a fantastic job, and the image quality just looks phenomenal. Look how nice and sharp that looks. The colors look great. It's nice and detailed, nice and sharp. The autofocus is doing a phenomenal job. Okay guys, so right now I have the PTZ camera connected to this external monitor via HDMI, and I want to go ahead and get you guys a little bit more familiar with the menu and settings that we have available on this PTZ camera. So I'm just going to use this wireless remote control. I'm going to press the menu button over here, and it's going to be displayed on this external monitor display screen. So let's go ahead and press menu, and as you guys see over here, top left hand corner, we got the exposure settings, we have the color adjustment settings, the image, PTZ, noise reduction, the general setup, some information, and restore to default. So let's just quickly go through these. Let's starting off with the exposure. So let's enter the exposure. Currently right now I have it set to manual exposure. We do have a few other options, for an example, SAE, AAE, and bright, and auto, and manual. So the shutter speed, as you guys can see, I have it to 1/125. Again, I have the resolution set to 1080p at 60 frames per second. So the iris, the aperture settings, as you can see, I have it set to 2.8, but we can go as low as f1.8. So I'm just going to leave it at f2.8 for now. We can also adjust the gain and the dynamic range as well. So coming back over here, next we have color. So underneath the color tab, we have the white balance mode, the color temperature adjustment, the RG tuning, the BG tuning, saturation, and hue. Next, let's go ahead and have a look at image. We can adjust the luminance, the contrast, sharpness, black and white mode, flip horizontally or vertically, the gamma adjustments, and also the image style. Coming over here to the PTZ controls, we got the D-zoom, speed by zoom, the left and right set is currently set to standard, the display info, the preset image freeze, call preset speed, pre-zoom speed, and PT by speed as well. Coming back over here to the noise reduction, we have 2D noise reduction and 3D noise reduction settings over here. Next, we have the general setup. Over here, we can adjust the language. So let's go ahead and quickly look at the video settings. As you see over here, the DVI mode is set to HDMI or DVI. The format is OSD, or we can set it to DIP. And we have the HDMI format, as I mentioned, 1080p at 60 frames per second. And also the SDI mode. We do have a couple of options as well, A and B. So let's back out of here. Next over here, we have the audio settings. So let's briefly take a peek. Audio source, the input volume, and audio output. Over here we have the focus settings. We do have autofocus sensitivity. Currently I have it set to normal or low or high. I like normal. And the autofocus zone, I have it set to center, or we can do bottom, front, top. So I like to use the autofocus zone set to center. Coming back over here to the USB settings, let's briefly have a closer look. H.264 is enabled, USB mode, UVC standby mode, and the wake up position. Let's take a look at the communication settings. This is where we're going to be able to configure the protocols such as the Visca, the Pelco D, or the Pelco B. And coming down over here to the tracking settings, so we can go ahead and enable the tracking mode and along with the tracking overlay. This is going to allow the camera to use that AI auto tracking and framing features, and just some other general settings over here. We got auto inversion, so if you flip the camera upside down, it's going to automatically detect that. And we have the preset tour, OSD flip, and OSD timeout. Other than that, it looks like we have the last one over here, which is the information setting, just the general firmware version, the date, the autofocus version, and the video format. Other than that, we can also restore back to default. So it's really nice to see that we have all of these controls over here right on the remote control itself, that we can configure this PTZ camera exactly the way we like to. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get a little bit more familiar on how we can connect this camera wirelessly to our PC to be able to control it and also view the video image. So first off, what we're going to do over here is come over to NDI tools. I'm just going to double click on it for it to open up. And here we have the NDI tools, which is free to download. I can go ahead over here to Studio Monitor. I can just go ahead and click on it once. And what that's going to do is bring up this other window over here. And as you can see, we do not have anything displayed until a few seconds until it connects to the camera. So if you do not have the camera over here displayed, what you want to do is come over here to the top left hand side, and you're going to be able to select from the options that you have available. And what we are looking for is the HD camera. And you can see over here NDI HX2 and then the IP address. So let's just go ahead and click on it. And as you see, we do have the video image over here. So we do have some basic controls of the camera over here. We can go ahead and pan left and right. Actually, that's pretty quick. As you guys can see, we can tilt up and down as well. And we can also zoom in right over here and zoom out as well. So we could also save some presets, and along with being able to control the manual focus over here as well. But for the most part, I like to keep everything onto autofocus because it does do a good job. So looking over here to the very bottom right hand corner, we do have this little gear icon, and what you want to do is go ahead and click on this, and it's going to open up a web page over here to be able to control this camera and a bunch of other further settings. So by default, the login ID and along with the password is admin, ADMIN, and same goes for the password, ADMIN, and go ahead and press the login. Okay, so bang, give it a second to boot up over here, and there we go. Now we have this interface over here, web page, that's going to give us even further controls. So starting off over here onto the left hand side to get you guys familiar, you can see currently right now I'm in the live view mode, which is going to give us a bunch of further settings over here to the right hand side. We can also come over here to setup, and we can configure a bunch of different settings over here. We will look at that shortly, and along with the AI settings as well. So for now, let's just go ahead and get more familiar with the live view settings. So now that we're in the live view tab over here to the right hand side, you can see starting off with the PTZ tab, we have the image tab, the exposure, and the white balance. So starting off with the PTZ to get you guys a little bit more familiar, we do have these arrows over here which are going to allow us to control the PTZ camera. We can tilt it, we can pan it, we can even go on an angle if we like to. And for me, as you guys can see, it's actually kind of a little bit too fast. So why don't we come down here a little bit further and adjust the tilt speed. Let's bring this down to maybe like 1 or 2. And along with the pan speed, let's bring this down so it's a little bit slower. And the zoom speed, you can adjust it to wherever you like it. So now let's go ahead and see how much more smoother it is and how much more slower. I feel like that's a lot easier to control, and it's a lot more natural depending what you are filming. Here we have the zoom in control, so we can easily zoom in or zoom out as you like to. Just press and hold it or click on it as you want. So over here underneath the zoom control, we do have some additional buttons, and again, they are not labeled, so from what I'm seeing, what it's doing, it's just adjusting the brightness or the contrast, the exposure of the image. Maybe just nice, quick and easy to be able to control those settings if you would like to, but for the most part, for the exposure, I like to do everything into the exposure tab, which we'll have a closer look at shortly. So again, now you guys are familiar with the tilt speed, the pan speed, and the zoom speed. And as far as the focus mode, you can see that I currently have it set to auto, but we can also set it to manual. Auto is doing a great job, so we'll just keep it as that. The sensitivity of the autofocus, currently I have it set to normal, but we can set it to low and high as well. And the autofocus zone, in my opinion, from my experience, I like to leave it to center. So over here towards the bottom, we do also have some preset configuration, so we can basically save a bunch of different presets and just call them up at any point right over here. So it's really nice to be able to control all of these settings right over here in the PTZ tab. Let's come over next to the image. Right now, currently for the flip, I have it set to off, but we can do horizontal flip, vertical flip, or horizontal and vertical flip at the same time. The graphic style, currently I have it set to default, or we can put it to clarity or normal. I like the default, and we can also adjust these other image settings. For an example, the brightness, contrast, sharpness, saturation, hue, and gamma. And next, let's come over here to the exposure tab. So right now I'm currently using manual exposure. We do have a few different options: auto, manual, SAE, AAE, and bright. I like to use manual, so I'm in full control. And now we can be able to go ahead and adjust the shutter speed. So currently right now I have it to set to 1/125. I'm currently filming right now at 1080p 60 frames per second on the PTZ camera. The iris value as well, again, we can go as low as 1.8, so it's going to make it nice and bright, and we can close it down all the way up to f11 if you like to, which is going to make it super dark. And we can go ahead and adjust the gain as well. So if we wanted to make it a little bit brighter, for an example, I'm going to call this like the ISO value. We can increase it if we need to, or decrease it to kind of really adjust the exposure, and along with the dynamic range as well. So we can increase this all the way up to 8. Next, let's have a closer look at white balance. So underneath the white balance itself setting, we have specific color temperature. That's what I currently am using, and as you can see over here, I've adjusted my color temperature. It's set to 5600K, and that is currently the same Kelvin that my lights are set up to. But what other options do we have? So we have auto white balance, we have an indoor preset, an outdoor preset, a one push, which is basically like a custom manual white balance that you can configure, and we have manual and specific color temperature, which I currently have set. The auto white balance sensitivity, in this case, since I have it set to like my own specific color temperature, it's not going to really come into effect. But if you are going to be using like an auto white balance or whatnot, can set it to high, middle, and low if you like to basically how sensitive that white balance is going to be. And if we need to, we can adjust the RG tuning and the BG tuning over here, so we can really just kind of dial it in as much as we like to. So now that you guys are more familiar over here in the live view mode, why don't we come over here briefly to the setup mode just to kind of see what other additional settings we have. So starting off over here underneath the setup, underneath video settings, you can see currently right now we're underneath the system settings, so we can configure over here our mainstream and our substream. So for an example, we got H.264, H.265, or MJPEG, and along with the encode type, the resolution, the bit rate, the GOP bit rate, and the frame rate and Q factor. And we have the substream settings as well that we can configure over here. As far as the video output, video format, I have mine set to OSD. We do also have the dial priority, and I currently have my HDMI timing set to 1080p, 60 frames per second, and we can go as low as 720p at 50 frames per second. So I'm taking advantage of the highest resolution over here of this camera, and frames per second at 1080p, 60 frames. Okay, next over here, let's go to the audio settings. Underneath the audio settings, we can adjust the audio to either enable it or turn it off, the format, the sample rate, stream rate, input type, volume, and ADTS as well. So that's all the settings that we have as far as the audio. Network settings over here, we have the local network that we can adjust, the ONVIF, the RTSP, RTMP, SRT, and NDI as well. So you can configure all of these things right over here. Next, we have the maintenance, so as far as the camera name and along with the firmware version. And also underneath the maintenance tab, we have some other options over here as far as the time and date configuration, along with the account, change the password, etc. We can reset the camera if we need to, and do a system upgrade for the firmware upgrade right over here into this page. Next over here, why don't we have a closer look at the AI settings? So over here, we're going to be able to turn on the AI tracking, the auto framing, and along with the AI tracking as well. I want to go ahead and show you how to add the camera via NDI to OBS. So starting off over here underneath sources, just click this plus icon. And if you do not have the NDI plugin for OBS, you're going to want to go ahead and download and install that, which I've already done. And now I have an NDI that I can add as a source. So let's go ahead and click on that. And over here, we can go ahead and rename it if you like to. Let's just go ahead and click on OK. And over here underneath source name, we want to click this little drop down arrow, and we want to select the PTZ camera. As you guys can see, it's listed over here, HD camera, NDI HX2, and then the IP address. Let's go ahead and select that and press OK, and bang, here is the NDI PTZ camera over here in OBS, working fantastic, and it's looking great. 1080p 60 frames per second. That's how it's done, guys. All right, guys, so this is the quick little setup for outdoors. I got the PTZ camera connected to power. I have the HDMI from the PTZ camera going to this YoloBox Ultra. This is a live streaming video switcher and recorder. You can see the HDMI right over there and the video signal coming in. Right over here is SSD, which I have at the back over here, which is going to be doing the recording, the isolated recording from the PTZ camera to the YoloBox Ultra. And I also have a wireless microphone right over here, which is the Rode Wireless Pro. I'm sending it in as a line input, and I have the wireless microphone just mounted onto my shirt. So there is the current setup. I'm just going to go ahead over here in front of the camera. I have the camera PTZ set to 1080p 30 frames per second. And let me just go ahead and actually press record over here. So I'm recording this to the Ultra right now. So exposure settings, I'm just going to go over here and give you guys a quick look. So I have the mode set to manual. The shutter speed is set to 1/60. And I have the iris, the aperture set to f11 because it is pretty bright outside right now. I have the autofocus on. I'm just going to go ahead and stop recording over here on my phone. And now we're just going to be looking at the footage coming from the PTZ camera itself. So to go ahead and demonstrate the zoom function, I'm just going to use this wireless remote control over here, and I'm going to zoom in all the way 20 times zoom and take a look on how the auto focus performs and along with how the image quality looks at 20 times zoom. So that zoomed all the way out. All right, so let's go for a little walk over here, and I'm going to zoom in with the remote control. This is almost zoomed in all the way. Just going to center myself, and bang, that's the remainder of the zoom right now. Okay, 1080p 30 frames per second. Let's go ahead and zoom out. Wow, the zoom is really definitely punched in quite a bit. And I can't really see from here, but I'm assuming the autofocus is doing a good job. We could adjust the exposure a little bit more. In that case, I would have to adjust the shutter speed, but for now, we'll just leave it as is. Why don't we go ahead and zoom back out, and I'm gonna come back over here to the camera, and I'm going to enable auto tracking. Okay, so AI tracking. So let's go over here into the menu. I'm gonna come down over here to setup and scroll down to tracking settings. Okay, and we're going to turn on tracking mode. Right now it's off. We have auto framing, which is going to auto frame. As you guys can see, I can just kind of move around. Okay, but I like to actually use the next setting, which is auto tracking right now. And therefore, as you see, we have that green box around me. So it's basically asking me, is this the person that you want to track? Because there might be multiple people and you can switch between which person you want it to track. So right now, since I'm the only person in frame, I'm gonna go ahead and press enter here on the remote control. Okay, so now that it recognized that I'm the person that I wanted to track, I'm just gonna close this menu up and I'm gonna walk away a little bit. Come over here to the side. Looking like it's doing a good job. Even when I come closer and move up even higher, take a step up. Seems like it's nice and smooth and gradual. Looks like it's doing a good job. Go to the settings over here and go to exposure and change it from manual to auto exposure. Okay, so there's auto exposure. I'm letting the camera do whatever it wants to do. So let's continue with this auto tracking. All right, let's go for a little walk. So it's also zooming in at the same time. Fantastic. 1080p, 30 frames, auto tracking, zooming in, zooming out, auto exposure. Can't really complain. It looks like it's doing a great job. Again, it's a super bright environment today. It would be nice to be able to install ND filters onto this PTZ camera, but overall, I think the subject, which is me right now, is well exposed, so I'm happy with that. So we can actually just enable the auto tracking, AI tracking right here on the remote control. So as you see over there onto the menu, it is off. I'm just gonna go ahead and close the menu for the remote control to be active, to be able to activate the AI tracking. So here is a little AI button on the remote control. I'm just gonna go ahead and press it once, and now the camera has entered the AI tracking mode. And as you guys can see, it's working quite well. Well guys, it looks like we reached that time of the video to give you my overall thoughts and review of this PTZ camera. If you guys cannot already tell throughout the course of this video, I'm definitely super impressed with the video image quality coming from this camera at 1080p, 60 frames per second. The autofocus does an amazing job. The AI auto tracking and framing also does a really good job as well. And the auto exposure and the auto white balance, we do have those controls. Some of my favorite features about this PTZ camera, again, the image quality, and along with the NDI feature to be able to send the video signal wirelessly to other devices like a video switcher or even our PC, and also being able to take advantage of the HDMI output to send that to an external monitor, and along with the SDI output as well. And how can we forget the 20 times optical zoom, and along with the 8 times digital zoom, again, the wireless remote control that's going to allow us to control this camera, and also the control via the web page. Overall, I'm very impressed with this camera. Would I recommend it? Yes, 100%. I think for what we are getting, the image quality and all the features that are bundled up into this PTZ camera, it's definitely worth it. If you guys are interested in purchasing this camera or want to know a little bit more about it, if I haven't already told you everything you need to know in this video, I'm going to leave a link down in the description down below so you guys can go ahead and purchase it off of Amazon or just kind of find out a little bit more about it. Overall, that's a wrap. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Any questions, any comments, any concerns, let me know down in the comment section down below. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video, learned something along the way, and we'll catch you on the next one. Till next time, peace.